Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much to Winnie and Sharon for such an amazing panel. It really kicked off, made us think about so many things, so many important things. And I'm really pleased to be introducing another panel, which I have we have two papers, 3 speakers altogether, on new narratives and representation. So I think we'll be continuing that conversation on how we represent these things, how we think about them in terms of creativity and artistic representation, what the ethics are, as well as what the activist effect. I will introduce our next speakers. We have, and I'm going to apologize to both of the speakers for predictably mispronouncing surnames. Florentina Gümüş is currently a PhD candidate, and please correct me on the pronunciation, at the Department of English Language and Literature at Ataturk University in Turkey. She completed her MA studies in Turkey, as well as a thesis on English and Turkish translation of homoerotic poems written by the Greek poet Constantine P. Cavafy. She graduated from the Department of Philology, University of Ioannina in Greece. Her current research focuses on contemporary British theatre through theories and concepts related to adaptation, culture, psychology, and feminism. Together with a passion for academic research, she is also an enthusiastic learner of foreign languages, her mother tongue being Romanian. And I will introduce Yeliz as well. Yeliz Biber Vangölü completed her doctoral studies in 2009 at the University of Leeds, England, and started working at Ataturk University in Turkey as an assistant professor in 2010. She's the author of a monograph on contemporary mask theatre in England and has recently co-edited a collection of essays on contemporary British theatre and politics. She has also published a number of essays that focus both on the textual analysis of drama and performance reviews. Her academic interests include feminist literature, contemporary British theatre, and mask theatre. And their paper today is entitled Contemporary Adaptations of Rape Stories. Welcome to one and both of you. I'm not sure if both of you are here today, but one of you, and you will please correct my pronunciation of both surnames. I will be very grateful. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Your pronunciation was perfect. My name is Florentina Gümüş, and my co-author is Yeliz Biber Vangölü. I am very happy to be here today, especially today. Our initial plan was to introduce you today to 3 adaptations: Dea by Edward Bond, The Village by April De Angelis, and Is True, Is True, Is True by the British Theatre. Even though they are all compelling examples of adaptations of rape stories and quite different in their approach, it seems more realistic to speak today only about one play, and we will introduce the other 2 just briefly. We selected Dea for the reason that in the adapted text, Euripides' Medea, there is no mention of rape, unlike the other 2 plays where rape is what drives the action. Throughout its long history, British theatre found a fertile ground for adaptation in rape stories included in ancient sources, be them other dramatic works, history, or mythology. A telling example is Titus Andronicus, which is one of the most disturbing plays written by William Shakespeare. An innocent victim used as a means of revenge, Lavinia is ravished, her hands cut off, and her tongue cut off by her father's enemies, and is later on killed by her own father. In constructing his female character, Shakespeare adapted the story of Philomela from Ovid's Metamorphoses. The degree of misogyny and loathing of the female body present in this play has very few counterparts in literature. The same story is the subject of The Love of the Nightingale, a contemporary play by Timberlake Wertenbaker. The story of Artemisia Gentileschi, a Renaissance Italian painter who takes legal measures against her rapist, was transposed in dramatic form only in 2018 by the British Theatre with the title It's True, Is True, Is True. Unlike Artemisia, who surprisingly manages to get a legal conviction for the man who rapes her, Laurencia, the protagonist of Lope de Vega's Fuente Ovejuna, a peasant girl living in the 15th century Spain, knows that no help can be expected from authorities, and she urges the entire village, especially the women, to take revenge on a rapist. Her story has been retold by April De Angelis in The Village in 2018, with almost no change to the plot, by setting the story in contemporary India. Linda Hutchen draws a parallel between evolutionary natural selection and the cultural selection of narratives. Quote, like living beings, stories that adapt better than others through mutation to an environment survive. The reason why stories such as those of Philomela, Laurencia, and Artemisia adapt better than others is because nothing has really changed. With a slight intervention to the ancient story, an adapter can place them anywhere in today's world. The focus point of the stories just mentioned is rape. Yet, there are others in which no reference to rape exists, but the adapter inserts this element. One such example is Edward Bond's latest play, Dea, which premiered at the Seacom Theatre in 2016 under the direction of the playwright. In the adapted text, Medea murders her children in order to take revenge on her husband who is about to marry another woman. While this play ends with Medea's chariot flying away with the children's soulless bodies, the contemporary play starts with the scene where the mother smothers her two children and smashes their heads with her heels. On being asked by her husband, Colonel Johnson, why she killed them, she replies, "You wanted me to do it." Enraged by this answer, he rapes her. 18 years later, she returns from the psychiatric hospital she was put in. In the house, she meets Oliver, one of the twins resulting most probably out of the rape. Enraged once more because Dea tells Oliver that she is in fact his mother, Johnson rapes her again, but this time she kills him. Next to Johnson's corpse, she fillets her son, and when he wakes up, at which point it is clear Oliver is a somnambulist, she blames her for killing his father in a modern twist of the Oedipus story. After a heated quarrel, she ends up killing him as well. Act 2 shows Dea's other son, John, in a military camp. During his interrogation of a female prisoner, he is enraged by her lack of response. In a similar way, his father was, and orders the soldiers to gang rape her. They are, however, unable to do it, and when they push him to rape her instead, he shoots her. When Dea appears looking for her son, John forces her to rape the corpse of the prisoner with a beer bottle. This time the soldiers join in. Anxious that she is there to kill them, John rapes Dea and the soldiers cheer along. During the rape, Dea realizes John is her son. Outside, a bomb explodes. The next scene takes Dea and the severed head of her now dead son to an abandoned caravan in the wilderness. The play ends with one of the soldiers who has survived the bombardment shooting Dea, who reappears in bloody clothes and refuses to die, just like the story of Medea refusing to be forgotten. If Euripides' Jason never uses physical force against his wife, in Bond's play, the rapture from the classical story is achieved by Johnson raping Dea. Chen remarks that in his discussion of the live performance that Helen Berg, the actress in the titular role, quote, did not physically resist during the rape, but freezed herself like a mannequin, end quote. She remains motionless when Johnson tears at her clothes, falls on her, punches her face, her body, and rapes her. The second time he rapes her, not only does she verbally resist, but stabs him before he has a life orgasm and death convulsion. Brown-Miller finds, quote, some sort of metaphysical justice, end quote, in the fact that the penis used as a weapon against women is also a very vulnerable place. This double function can be observed in the moment Dea kills her rapist during sex, when, though she is obviously vulnerable, he is as well, and their roles are reversed. From the attacker, he transforms into the victim. While rummaging in her, Johnson utters what is probably a rapist's most famous line, "You want it, you whore." His words during and after he rapes Dea relate to myths that can be grouped under the categories of no harm was done, since she is a murderess, therefore in his view, lacks emotions and should not be treated as a human being, which also implies that she deserved it. And furthermore, she wanted it and asked for it. Johnson deduces that she wants it and asks for it simply from her coming to his house, action he views as flaunting herself like a common, the word is missing, but he probably meant whore or prostitute. The fact of the matter is that Dea actually comes to her own house, which is taken over by him, like her body, her children, and the second rape is him reinforcing his status. Dea may not be an adaptation in the narrowest sense of the term. However, the playwright acknowledges that his play is based on Medea by Euripides. There are a few elements bringing the two stories together, most importantly, the portrayal of Medea and Dea as foreigners, mad, and very dangerous. Where the story of Medea and that of Dea drastically depart is Bond's choice to transform the myth of Medea into a story about rape. There can be at least two explanations for this radical departure. The first is that in Greek mythology, the goddesses Hera and Aphrodite, helped by Eros, make Medea fall in love with Jason and do all the horrible things she does to her own family and others. The fact that she never gives her consent and is tricked into loving Jason and implicitly into having sex with him and getting pregnant could have been interpreted by Bond as rape. And we are indebted to Dr. Tuba Aygan for this observation. I think she is here with us today. Even if this interpretation is indeed a valid one, taking into consideration the playwright's views on violence, we would argue that the message Bond wants to transmit by giving so much space to rape is that having sex with a woman in order to produce children to be sent to war and death is a form of rape and is no less and no more disturbing than men being sent to war and death and innocent people being killed in war. Situations do not change meaning, as Johnson and his son John argue. Rape is violence, just like murder is violence. In a documentary for the BBC Radio 4 entitled Theatre of the Abused, April De Angelis begins the discussion by questioning the necessity for the portrayal of violence against women, including sexual violence, on stage. She warns against the dangers of representing women as victims instead of empowering them. However, De Angelis concludes that bringing forth such issues, offering a platform for the stories of women who have been abused to be told, and raising the awareness of the audience is indeed possible to theater. She adds that the portrayal of violence on stage is less dangerous than silence. Our research into contemporary adaptations of rape stories shows that through the adaptation of stories about women who fight back in various ways, without expecting the men in their lives, be them fathers, husbands, brothers, lovers, to do it, theater is capable of contributing to the empowerment of women. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that fascinating paper. Our final speaker we'll move on to quickly. I think we're about 10 minutes over, so we'll have another speaker and then we'll have a few minutes for questions, I hope. So our final speaker is Yasaman Taheri, who is a transnational feminist researcher with a master's degree in English literature. Am I correct with that? Yeah, we're good. We're good to go. From the University of Tehran, who explores the cultural and societal constructions of gender in world literature. Her research focuses on the connections between sexuality, violence, identity, class, and race globally, particularly among contemporary Italian, Turkish, Arabic, and African women writers. Her paper today is entitled Transgressed Reality Toward a New Feminist Critical Discourse Analysis of Ahlam Mosteghanemi's Chaos of the Senses. You're very welcome, Yasaman, knowing the kind of difficulty that you might have had to join us today. We're especially grateful for your presence and for reaching out. So thank you so much. The screen is yours.
Hi everyone, I hope you are well. It's my honor to be here. I make my presentation, maybe shorter than the other participants because maybe I lost my connection. So I will start my presentation and feminist critical discourse analysis deals with political discourses and challenges the existing discourses, gender discourses, since the third wave of feminism highlights the feminist perspective and language in discourses. This critical discourse analysis has an aim of advancing a rich critical analysis of complex works of power and ideology in discourse in supporting hierarchical gender social order. It challenges the existing social practices regarding predefined gender expectations and aims to transform such practices. Gender asymmetries are materially as well as symbolically enacted implicitly in some contexts, so the facts remain the same that women and also men globally continue to live with patriarchy, although some enactment and extends across different social orders. After decades of debates among feminist scholars, there's still a pervasive resistance to serious engagement between Western and non-Western perspective on feminism and gender. This is even more symptomatic when it comes to Islamic feminism scholars. The next slide will be about Fatima Mernissi, an Arab socialist and feminist. Mernissi's body of work reflects her location and cultural background through the ways in which she theoretically and empirically examines questions around Islam, gender, sexuality, human rights, and democracy within the Muslim and Arab worlds. She avoids labels and was skeptical about ideologies. She was criticized by Marxists for undermining class struggle with her concern with women's issues, by Islamists for daring to question religious orthodoxy, and by nationalists for, importing the culturally foreign notion of feminism. She took to tasks colonialism, Western ethnocentrism, religious conservatism, capitalism, and nationalism for the ways, they marginalized women. She roamed widely between disciplines and different theoretical approaches over the years. So her commitment seems to be primarily to social change, bringing some kinds of social changes toward gender identity in Arab worlds. Next slide is about Ahlam. Mosteghanemi is the writer of The Chaos of the Senses, is an Algerian writer who been called probably the world's best known Arabophone women novelist. Her novel, The Chaos of Senses, expressed a unique understanding of social and political events and convey the impacts of these events on individuals by combining love stories with political and social history fused in present time. In one of her interviews, she states that the impact of colonization and post-colonization on her writing and Algerian people, cannot be undermined. The next slide, please. Her decision to write in Arabic and the theme of her novels are directly informed by Algerian War of Independence, and such can be seen both as a statement of, national independence and a feminine one, from a Eurocentric homogenization of language and discourse, and as feminist political statement. In her novel, Chaos of Senses, she seeks to recapture suppressed feminine voice as she reflects on the relationship between women and writing, and more importantly, creating an agency through the depiction of fictional character. The main character called Hayat. This study utilizes Michel Lazar's feminist critical discourse discourse analysis, and Fatima Mersini's socialist feminism to reveal how Mosteghanemi centralized Hayat's character in chaos of senses and redefined wide range of concepts, including power, love, national identity, and freedom. Next slide, please. Chaos of Senses paved the way for a new genre in writing, combining fiction, poetry, and becoming vehicles for voicing untold stories. Eschewing the machine of censorship, as well as when Hayat womanizes Algeria's post-independence history to reaffirm the marginalization of women's knowledge. Even in the English translation, there's a strong sense of historical and geographical reality of Algeria, an ancient country repeatedly invaded by colonizing forces, and in struggling again in modern world to reestablish itself as an independent country. Orientalist, local Algerian authorities, and feminine discourse of Hayat performs an intersectional approach to gender that is attentive to how its interplay with class and race. Consequently, Mosteghanemi uses postmodernity in conjunction with political consciousness to create a unique narrative space within which to reimagine reality and subvert the new forms of colonialism and denigration of women. Last slide. The most significant aspect of Algerian society explored in Mosteghanemi's novel are the far-reaching social effects of Algerian war of independence and gendered experience of this trauma. From post-colonial feminist perspective, this paper additionally explore, the theme of war and trauma. A war is more than a struggle through which a nation won back its freedom. And her novels, most of her novels, Mosteghanemi's novels, are ultimately a meditation on question of collective memory and its narrativization as national past. She offers reader a perspective in which the relationship between the real and allegorical world become blurred, even as she references the real places, people, and historical events. She also brings together as elements in an allegorical stories or narrative.